Solutions. Well, solutions to the most heart disease problems are, frankly, well, boring. I do a lot of transcribing of the latest research and clinical guidelines into LLM prompts as my daily work. I'm actually going to share a few prompts with you as well in this video. And what I can tell you, with everything we know about how heart disease happens, it shouldn't be even on the list of top 10 killers. Yet still to this day, it's number one. I guess that's why I'm making this video, and hopefully if you stick with it, you will significantly increase your chances to live longer. And what's good for the heart also happens to be good for the brain, and will reduce your chances of getting cancer as well. So to recap quickly, how heart disease happens from like medical mechanical side of things. We have apoBs. Those Bs are vehicles which carry cholesterol around. Cholesterol doesn't dissolve in blood, so it needs a vehicle. And when those vehicles crash into the artery walls, they create that cholesterol spillage. And if that spillage is not quickly cleared up by immune system and by HDL, well, it starts to create that plaque. And if your immunity system is overwhelmed, creates those foam cells stays there, and it starts to getting messy. Basically, imagine that fat, if you drive in a vehicle and it crashes into the ditch and that fat starts to rot, that's what you get. And that's why we want to avoid it. Next here on the list is Lp(a). That's a very specific vehicle which also carries cholesterol, but it carries oxidized cholesterol, basically already toxic one. When you have a lot of those and when they crash, they create disaster right away. And that's why when you usually hear somebody to die in their 60s or even 50s from their family heart disease, which goes through generation to generation, that usually Lp(a) would be the first suspect. Then you have blood pressure. Blood pressure smashes those vehicles into the walls so much harder, so they get stick there deeper. The higher the blood pressure, the worse it gets. Then we have a whole triage of blood sugar, triglycerides, and insulin. It's all your metabolic health in a nutshell. And they all affect the quality of the road. Insulin opens things, so imagine it as potholes on the road. Blood sugar damages and stiffens that road, so it's much easier to crack it. Triglycerides just create a lot of traffic, more accidents. And then we have inflammation, homocysteine. Homocysteine is the marker of methylation, a process which does everything in your body, including creating new cells and repairs. So that's how it happens. Now the question is, what are the solutions? The boring ones, not so boring ones, I have a couple. And what can we do today to start improving in small ways? Because the idea is that's a lifelong process, so you don't need to panic, but you better start small and improve your life consistently. Number one on the list is sleep. And the reason is sleep. It's the motivation driver. To do everything, which I'm going to list below, you need a good quality sleep. Because everyone have like a tank of motivation, which you spend during the day. And you recharge your motivation bank when you sleep. So that's almost like a prerequisite to get anywhere. And also, for example, when you have enough sleep, your body prefers to create muscle. When you don't have enough sleep, your body prefers to create fat. Not a good thing. Also, when you sleep, you get smarter. When you sleep, that repair works is happening. So sleep reduces apoBs. Sleep reduces blood pressure. Sleep reduces blood sugar. When you're underslept, your blood sugar jumps up easily 20 points. Right? When you sleep, your insulin goes down. When you sleep, your inflammation improves. When you sleep, homocysteine goes down. So it's like you can hit almost every bird on that side with your sleep. And what you can do right now, as we speak, as I'm talking to you, you can set up a go-to-bed alarm. You can pause the video, go to your phone, and just set up go-to-bed alarm. Then you can be fancy and shift that go-to-bed alarm backwards until you wake up consistently when you need without a morning alarm. This way you're going to get enough sleep to fully recover. Then you can improve the quality of your sleep, and the simplest way is to have blackout curtains in your bedroom, have your bedroom dark and cold. I do have a whole video with deep dive into that, but that's just like the lowest hanging fruits. And every time you wake up, spend 15 seconds to raise those blinds or get outside and just look at the bright sky to reset circadian clock, which will make you more sleepy in the evening, which will make your sleep so much better. So you might need a little less sleep, so you wake up refreshed every time. Okay, so, but first, step number 1, set up that alarm to go to bed. Number 2, and something, as Mark, what's his name, Heyman, said, if you would have a pill, let's say you can buy a pill that improves your mood, that helps you to lose weight, that makes you more productive, that improves your libido, that reduces the chances of getting heart disease, dementia, and cancer. People would line up to just buy that pill and take it every day. And that pill is exercise. And the thing is, you don't even need all that much. It's not like centenarians go to gym every day. But what they do every day is they have a lot of activity. So where you need to start with your exercise is you need to sweat daily. And you can do a favorite sport if you can find one, or you can just go for a brisk walk, or go on a treadmill, or find a stationary bike and, bike for at least 20 minutes. And what you can do now, if you are not doing that yet, again, the easiest way to start, which works for the most people most of the time, is to put that on your calendar. Because what's on your calendar, what's scheduled, that's what gets done. And for 20 minutes, it should be your priority. Like, it's so powerful. Exercise affects everything here except Lp(a), same as sleep. It should be your priority, well, number 2, I guess. Or maybe number 1. So just find that 20 minutes for now. You can grow it bigger later, but today just schedule 20 minutes. And you don't have to, quote unquote, waste the time. While you're pushing those pedals, you can be listening to a podcast or to one of my videos, let's say on how to turn motivation and New Year resolutions into discipline. That video is exactly 20 minutes. You can try it. And 2, as I said, exercise pretty much hits every bird on this side. There is one cheat code here, which recently came out. It's not, unfortunately, available to everyone, but if you can spend some time in sauna, it seems to be very effective. There is possibility that it's correlation, but the effect is so strong and dose dependent that I wouldn't skip on sauna if you can find time and opportunity to spend some time in it. Because when you're in sauna, you sweat, so you detox, your heart rate goes up, so it exercises your heart and improves elasticity, inflammation goes down, brain neurotrophic factors goes up, and it just, seems to be like mimicking exercise, but with you just sitting on your butt. And you can be either meditating on how heat hits your body, or you can be listening to an audiobook or another video. So it's like a cheat code here. Sauna, right? After that exercise becomes your modus operandi, after you can do it for every day, and you should. Even when I'm sick, I'm trying to exercise, just to maintain the habit. Then you can start layering resistance training on top of this breaking sweat activity. The breaking sweat is basically, if you follow any longevity or anything, that's what's called zone 2. When you're running on your fat storages, that's when you improve your mitochondria a lot. And then you can layer on top resistance training. Again, the goal is to start small, but be consistent. Start with 1 time a week or 2 times a week. And building muscle is also a lifelong thing. You can start with your body weight at home. If you have time, you can go to the gym. And especially if you're female, let's say after 40 years old or maybe younger, doesn't matter. Like, if you think that resistance training is not for you, think again. You absolutely, actually, even probably more than men, you need that heavy load to your bones. Because when estrogen goes down through the perimenopause and menopause, that's absolutely must. And building, like if you're afraid that your muscles will be huge, no, it doesn't work like that. People who spend decades in the gym, not necessarily looking muscular without a pump and flex and a good light. Let's say I've spent 5 years exercising every other day, and I can do 14 chest to bar pull-ups, but look at those muscles. It's not going to happen easily. But resistance training, you must just, if you're starting, you can start with walks and just breaking sweat. If you're a little further, add resistance training. And then ultimately, so we have resistance training here. And then another one is high intensity interval training. Yes, if you have a strong will, you can start with high intensity. It might be more productive. But I think it's much easier to build a base of walking, then add resistance training, then add high intensity training, which improves your oxygen intake and how your lungs work. Another cheat code for your lungs and your mood and energy is breathing exercises. They do not take all that long. I have a couple videos outlining how to do that, multiple ways to breathe, which also actually helps with stress immensely. And lung health is like paramount. They are the creatures of oxygen. So spending 5 minutes a day breathing consciously is amazing cheat code. The third more major boring controversial, however you call it, pillar diet. Yoo-hoo. And everyone everyone has his own opinion on what's best. And I don't think there is short-term best, because you can be using, let's say, ketogenic diet just to improve your insulin sensitivity or resolve some inflammation issues. But because diet is so hard to study properly with control over a long time, it's so little murky. But what seems to be more or less solid from the research point of view, that if you start from plant-rich diet, and the bigger the variety of the plants, the better, because you have different kind of fibers, you have different kind of vitamins, you have different kind of polyphenols, which help your immunity and is toxic to your cancer cells and metabolically weak cells. That's kind of that plant quote-unquote paradox, because all those plants and phytonutrients, yes, they are slightly toxic, but they kill the weak cells and makes good cells stronger. Like an exercise. Huh. Interesting, right? Exercise is also damages your cells, but they grow stronger. The same way plants damage your system a little bit, but because your body overcompensates, it makes you stronger. So you start with any plant base, fiber-rich, lentils. I have cooking videos about lentils. That's my favorite way to get fiber. Oats, overnight oats loaded with protein. My second favorite. A lot of greens. So let's mark here. First is fiber, right? Fiber. Special note about greens. Greens and beets. Those guys provide a lot of nitric oxide, and nitric oxide, if you ever heard about nitroglycerin, which people take for their heart health, nitric oxide is stored in your skin, and when sunlight hits your skin, it gets into the blood, relaxes your system, reduces blood pressure, improves flexibility, and flexibility is good for your heart health. So you start with fiber, you continue with lean proteins or proteins low in saturated fat. Fish is especially good, especially salmon and small fish like sardines. It has been studied ad nauseum. For most people, most of the time, saturated fat is increasing number of apoBs, and mono and polyunsaturated fat decreasing that. You can listen to whatever influencers you want, but if you look at the studies, and they are pretty much on point, there is no contradiction there. We know how saturated fats turns into apoBs, and apoBs create more traffic on the road. So as I said, you can use ketogenic diet carefully with some precision here and there. But for the long-term health, Mediterranean diet with this kind of twist to pescatarian style, where you have higher omega index. That's what you want to look for. Omega index over 8. That's good for inflammation, that's good for blood pressure, that's good for apoB, so cannot go wrong with that. Then you, after proteins and poly and unsaturated fats, you can do whatever you want. There is nothing wrong with eating a candy here and there, as long as, actually there is nothing wrong with carbohydrates, period, as long as you are sticking to what's called your carbohydrate tolerance. What it means, if you want to get a little more advanced, you can put a continuous glucose monitor on yourself, CGM, and you can see how your body reacts to the amount of carbohydrates you eat. And it doesn't really matter if it's a candy or banana or whatnot. Carbohydrates are carbohydrates. They all turn into glucose. What matters is the speed at which they hit you. Basically, a small bullet at high speed can be worse than a brick which somebody passes you. It's about speed. And CGM can measure that. And if you think about it, glucose, those spikes or whatever, they measure not just the amount of sugar you eat, although they do that as well, but your glucose, right, blood sugar and insulin, they work as like an aggregate function of your metabolic health. What I mean by that is when you have plenty of muscle mass, it means that sugar will go there first. And in a way, your blood sugar reflects that. If you eat a little bit of carbohydrates and your blood sugar spikes, it means that you do not have enough muscle, or you're not active enough, or you had a stressful day, or you didn't have enough sleep, or maybe your insulin sensitivity is not there. So suddenly sugar becomes not just sugar, but the whole indicator of your whole metabolic health. And you can look at A1C as a simple blood test, or better yet, as I said, it's much more precise and accurate if you have a CGM, continuous glucose monitor, and can see how it changes under the load. You load yourself with sugar, with whatever meal, and you see how your body reacts. And then you can start working. If data drives you, that's going to blow your mind. Enough said. I have separate videos about CGMs. Go watch that on those daily walks, right? 20 minutes. All right, after diet. Did I miss anything on diet? Alcohol, well, again, don't. If you do drink and you think it's a problem, well, just substitute with non-alcoholic beers. Substitute if you need that social flow. There is kava, there is kana, there is kratom. So be careful with kratom, but they're still much better than alcohol. There are so many ways nowadays to get off the drinking habit and land softly. What else can I say about diet? Well, probably fasting. So one thing to do is to try intermittent fasting and try to eat less in the evening. That's time-restricted eating. That's actually the correct name for it. And you want to restrict your eating in the evening because that improves sleep, and that improves insulin sensitivity, and that drops your visceral fat. Keeping your visceral fat low is like holy grail of metabolic health. So what would be one simple thing you can do with your diet today? I would say that's what I recommend mostly everyone when they ask me how to lose fat. I tell them to eat more. Yes. But see, this number one is fiber, and that's what you do. You eat more fiber. That's what I do every morning. Let's say go down and I start my day by eating some leaves or a cucumber or whatnot, and that's what makes you less hungry. Ultimately, that's how, let's say, Ozempic works. And it's magical, right? It just makes you less hungry. And fiber does the same. So if you want a simple solution, eat a cucumber before every meal or something fiberish. Okay, next thing. Another boring, obvious is not smoking. I guess that's everyone knows. Smoking is bad for you for multiple reasons. Pretty much everything here on the list will suffer from that. So just don't. And I don't have actually good advice how to stop smoking. But what I do have an advice on is controlling air quality. Because air quality in your house, if you're close to the road or if you have some mold in your house, is what I'm bouncing on right now is HEPA filter, which I have in my bedroom and in my office. And that reduces inflammation and improves homocysteine status. And I think it also improves blood pressure and slightly improves apoBs. Next, with inflammation, it's very important to keep an eye on your gum health, because a lot of inflammation which starts here in your mouth gets into your heart. There are a bunch of studies which link one to another. So if you have bleeding gums, if you're not going to your dentist for some reason, do that, fix it. It's not that complicated. Simple advice here would be buy yourself some xylitol gum, because xylitol improves it kills those acid creating bacteria in your mouth. It works great. So let's put five here. Do some toothy smile. And for that you can xylitol gum. All right, next on the list, we're getting to a little more specialized stuff. This was more like a boring. You probably knew it. If you didn't, don't forget to put that like somewhere and comment on what you're going to implement. Next thing is kind of on the borderline between boring and not so boring, is limiting your caffeine intake, or at least limiting the source and the method. It's good to filter your coffee, especially if you're sensitive to coffee oils. I've noticed that when I do that, my apoB drops like 20 points. So that's filtered coffee. Filtered coffee. And also limiting it to the first half of the day usually improves your sleep, and sleep affects everything. So what you can start and try today is to get yourself one of those Chemex filtering coffee things, and just give it a try, see how you like it. Maybe you do, because I personally love that filtered coffee. It tastes so much better. You don't even need milk with that. It's so soft. Next would be addressing homocysteine and methylation specifically. Methylation is how pretty much every process in your body happens, from DNA activation to detox to building new brain cells. It affects in one way or another everything. And you need to measure your homocysteine on a regular basis. Usually all you need to do is to find a good quality B vitamin complex. Quite a lot of people have MTHFR and COMT mutations. It's good to know what happens with your specific DNA. You can do 23andMe test, or you can be more precise and do Genova genetic test specifically for MTHFR. I can link the test below if you want. But as a solution, you can just look at the functional marker, homocysteine, and then you play with vitamin Bs, riboflavin specifically, B12 unmethylated or methylated, The trick there is depending on your COMT mutation. Not everyone can tolerate methylated vitamin B12. And if you tried methylated B12 and you feel jittery, well, switch to non-methylated forms. And there is also a supplement called TMG, which is actually also found in beets, which is good for you. It also reduces homocysteine and improves methylation and that whole one carbon cycle. So that's something you should be, as I said, measuring annually and keeping a lid on it. It will improve every aspect of your heart health and your brain health, especially when you have omega index above 8 and homocysteine below 8. You reduce your dementia chances by 40%, for example. So that's amazing. Check your homocysteine. Take B complex. Take TMG. Take NAC if needed. Ooh. With that said, we're kind of going into supplement and medication land, which I'm not a big fan of. Ideally, you want to get as much as you can with your diet, and only when your diet is not providing, let's say, enough greens, which will drive homocysteine down, to bring that homocysteine under 8, or when your diet does not provide enough omega to get that index above 8, then when you start to supplement to match your specific diet restriction or genetic mutations. But if you are like most Americans on 5 or more medications, you should definitely see if you can get off medications. And that's not always possible, but there is, if you do a little bit of search, there is a bunch of often prescribed medications which nobody should be longer than, let's say, 6 months, like PPIs, proton pump inhibitors for that acid reflux. People start on 3 months adventure with them and then stick with them for life, which creates a lot of absorption issues and lead to dementia, and then actually kind of feeds into everything here. Same goes for Benadryl, same goes for a lot of sleeping drugs. I'm probably going to make a separate video just about deprescribing that. But what you need to do on a regular basis is talk with your doctor and ask him kind of hard questions. What do I need to do to get off this drug and this drug and this drug? Isn't that time I drop my PPIs and replace them with sodium carbonate or Tums? So 8 is deprescribe. Get off every medication you can. That's a long-term goal. It's not something you just need to drop off, because if you're on PPIs and just stop using them, you'll be in trouble. But if you slowly decrease the dose and do it in functional medicine way, you'll be so much better off in the long run. And now, when we kind of make a 180-degree turn, and we do come to medication, when you fixed everything in here, and your apoBs are still high, it's time to ask why. And do you need medication to address that high apoB? Generally, the answer is yes. And statins, that's a cheap tool to deal with that. You don't always need statins. For example, 9 medications, meds. If your liver overproduces cholesterol, then statins might be the right solution. Like when you're sleeping, exercising, your diet is on point, but you still have elevated apoB. And you can do more advanced testing if that apoB is causing issues. Building plaque, you can do angiogram, or you can check for LP activity with cardio IQ test by Quest. That was my situation, actually. I saw that I did everything correctly, but I still some inflammation in my heart going on. You need to figure out if it's your liver or if it's your gut. Usually, well, sometimes it's both, but usually it's one or another which causing that familiar hypercholesterolemia. If your liver overproducing cholesterol, statin, low dose statin, most of the time you just need a tiny dose, like 5 milligrams. 5 milligrams of Crestor will do 90% of the work. If that causes issues, just try different statins. We have like 5 good ones, second generation, which usually do not produce any side effects, and you need a tiny dose. On the other hand, if it's your gut which overabsorbs cholesterol and elevates your apoB, you might need a drug called ezetimibe. And there is simple blood test called cholesterol balance. And with that cholesterol balance, you can figure out if it's your liver or if it's your gut. And then you just address the root cause. Quite often, let's say in my own family, my father was on statins, which did nothing. So they had to increase the dose. And now I understand that he just had the same problem as I do, overabsorption. That's when you get side effects from statins, when you're not applying them correctly to the root cause. Okay, so that kind of targets apoBs directly. There is one player here called Lp(a), and for Lp(a), you just need to test it once, more or less, to figure out if you have a genetic predisposition for Lp(a). And if your Lp(a) is elevated, again, you should be on medications like PCSK9 inhibitors, or be doing everything else to a much higher degree, because they both create damage. So if you cannot reduce your Lp(a), well, at least try to reduce your apoB as much as you can. Next, on the specific tools and medications, can be metformin or berberine, which actively reduce your blood sugar, which actively decrease your insulin levels. You can be actively on Ozempic or newer modifications of those GLP-1 drugs, because, well, losing that visceral fat is important for everything else here. There is a kind of drugs which just reduces blood sugar by making you pee them out. They're called SGLT2 inhibitors. That's also you might consider. And with a little advanced stuff, number 10, it's going to be hormones. Number 1, you need to check your thyroid now and then, because thyroid affects pretty much everything in your body, and you need to keep an eye on it. And number 2 are your sex hormones, because, let's say, for males, testosterone makes you more active, makes you more physically active, reduces your visceral fat, increases your muscle mass, and as we talked, it plays into everything here. Same idea is for estrogen and for hormonal replacement therapy for women. If you're at that age, there is no specific reason, unless you had some specific cancer which is estrogen driven, not to be on estrogen, progesterone, and a little bit of T to maintain your bone health, to maintain your emotions in check, to be more active. So that's something you need to do. Now, I do have everything I've described here in a couple of prompts for ChatGPT, which you are welcome to download from our nonprofit website. And the way you use them, first you need to run first prompt to create a database of basic answers. It's like an intake before you visit cardiologist. Then you drop second prompt into the same chat, and it will act as a functional and integrative cardiologist doctor, and will give you a list of things you can do right now. It will give you a set of tests you might want to do, and set of questions you should be asking your cardiologist or your primary care during the next visit. Please ask me any questions. Let me know if you should do a deep dive into female hormones, for example. That's something I probably should do anyway. And go watch that video about sticking to exercise, or actually watch a video about improving your sleep. Make a choice. And for the next scheduled 20 minutes walk, watch one of those two. Living is smart, aging is bad, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers!